Hello, my name is Dima, you watch But Her Developer channel, where I try to develop a big project for music industry. And today I'm going to talk about accessibility of web application. Maybe this video would be useful not only for web development, but in my channel I'm talking about web development. So if you're a web developer, I believe you open Chrome console and see tab Lighthous. And you can find together with performance, best practice and SEO optimization, accessibility value. Maybe you even got 100%. Little plot twist here, 100% in Lighthous, it's not really 100% accessibility. A big part of accessibility feature is just impossible to check automatically. Accessibility is a measure of how easy your product is to use for people with disabilities, whether temporary or permanent. This includes visual, hearing or motor impairments. A set of rules that will help make your product more accessible is called WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. This guideline contained 3 levels of accessibility: Level A, AA and AAA. AAA is a very complex part of this guideline, and we have a lot of cases when it is impossible to implement AAA. For example, I can't apply the abbreviation rule because content on my site was created by users and I cannot control users. So today I'm going to talk only about AA rules, and I'm going to show some tricks that are not described in this guideline, but they could be helpful for your users. But first I want to talk why you should think about accessibility of your application. First of all, because you are a good people and you should think about equality access to your product. Unfortunately, in most cases this argument does not work because of capitalism. Business wants cheaper and faster solutions. Accessibility requires time to develop, requires developer expertise and of course resources for testing. And no matter how it sounds, lack of accessibility is discrimination against group of people. And because it's a discrimination, that the state has taken a regularity the accessibility for your sites or your applications. In the United States of America we can talk about Section 508 and the most important ADA, American with Disabilities Act. You may have heard about it, for example in Domino's Pizza lawsuit by people with vision problem. And Domino's lost this case and pay some money to the people. In Europe we have a Web Accessibility Directive. It first to make a minimum AA WCAG accessibility level, but most importantly, starting from the second half of 2025 year, European Accessibility Act will come into force, and by this act all commercial applications, websites and etc. should have minimum AA accessibility WCAG level. So I think web developers will have a lot of work next year, because analytics says for now 96% of websites do not have WCAG level 2, and I really believe in this analytics because I have 10 years of web development experience, more than 30 projects and zero accessibility requests. So yeah, I believe that your project have accessibility problem right now. And yeah, I know you think you have some deep enterprise project, some admin analytic dashboard and etc. And you believe your business, your enterprise don't need accessibility. But please be honest and translate this sentence from a business language to lower language. And it will sound something like this. It is easy to not hire a person with disabilities or to fire a person with disabilities than to create working conditions. Do I understand business in this case? Yes, I understand. Do I think it's right? No, I don't think so. But there is another huge positive aspect from accessibility that works no matter do you afraid of punishment from the government or not. Accessibility has huge impact to SEO optimization. It is no secret that Google search index sites with a high level of accessibility much more better, and a lot of SEO tricks coincide with accessibility tricks. So I can start with this. For SEO and accessibility is very important to use a right semantic structure. Yes, I am talking about tags, header, now, main, footer, article, section, time and etc. It's very helpful for user who use screen reader to navigate on your sites. In this case it's very important to use right headers, H1 from main title and H2 and etc. from nested levels. And it is very important to use native HTML elements. Button for buttons, links for links, checkbox for checkbox, and radio button for radio button. And yeah, you are a web developer and you know that it is quite hard or maybe impossible to create modern, beautiful websites using vanilla HTML elements. And yeah, I believe you can make CSS file to change some button style or some checkbox style. But if we talk about something like Smart Select with search field, it is very hard. But here we can use ARIA attributes. Accessible rich internet applications. There are a lot of ARIA attributes, but first of all I want to talk about role attribute. Role provides semantic meaning to content. You should not use it when you use right semantic HTML elements, but if you use non-semantic or not default vanilla component, you should use ARIA role. And I want to show a very simple example. We have div. When we click on this div, something should work. And here it is important to write a role button to this div, because our div block is a button. Looks like simple, but sorry, not. If your element has role button, it should work like button. You should set tab index to 0 because button can be selected using tab, using keyboard. Button should have action on space press, on enter press, and of course when you press space on a button, default browser behavior, scroll to the next page, should not run. And yeah, it is not my wish and not my personal rule. Just imagine a person who uses keyboard for navigation and screen reader for reading content. Screen reader say, okay, now you on the button, you press space and nothing happens. Even more, page have scrolled down. It is terrible, but to be honest, I believe that people who use screen readers and who use keyboard are used to this, but we don't have to make it the norm. Except role, we have a lot of ARIA attributes. Please read and Google about it. I won't be able to talk about everyone in this video, but I want to say about two things about ARIA attributes. So for ARIA attributes with semantic scheme, create specific accessibility object model, A or M, just like a document object model, but accessibility object model. And yeah, screen readers read accessibility object model. You can see accessibility object model when you press console on Chrome web browser, tab elements, and sub-tab accessibility. And what you should know that ARIA and semantic tree exist only because HTML from scratch have a bad architecture. That's why a lot of HTML attribute we should duplicate using ARIA attributes. For example, title. We can use title for help people understand what happens when we press to button. But if we talk about accessibility, we should use ARIA label, no matter do we use title or not. The same problem with disabled, ARIA disabled and simple disabled. And of course, semantic structure will be checked by Lighthous or another accessibility automatic tester. But they not check your texts, what you write. For example, I have very specific checkboxes with three states, true, false or null. I use it for filtering. True if I want to see music bands, for example, from Ukraine. False if I want to exclude Ukrainian music bands from search. And null if I don't use any condition with this entity. And it is very hard to describe by one sentence what happens. And in this case, with filters, user can make a ready-made page with filters by a link, don't see or don't understand iconographics, and of course misunderstand what happens when click on this button or checkbox. And in this case, best practice is write current state and what happens when we click. But Lighthous don't give a fuck what you write. You can write ARIA label blah 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 and Lighthous say, okay, it's cool, 100% accessibility. And yeah, as developer, you should think about translation, localization of ARIA labels. And as developer, you should use all your soft skills to describe localization task to your client or translation team, because it is very hard to explain why they need to translate something what they don't see. Okay, I hope you will read about ARIA attributes and use it. But I go next to required WCAG parameter, color contrasts. 100% that Lighthous will check your color contrasts, and it is very simple check. Color ratio between background and text color should be enough for people with different vision deficiencies. And what you should do? Simple, enter to Google color contrasts. Go to first link and write your background color and text color, and online editor will show what WCAG level you can have with these colors for normal text size and for big text size. And you should know that most of automatically tests require AAA level as minimum, so AA is not your choice. And if you want to understand why this is important, you can emulate vision deficiency right in Chrome browser. Go to Chrome console, more menu, more tools, rendering, and find emulate vision deficiencies. Or if you are using Storybook, I have a previous video about Storybook. I strongly recommend you to use accessibility add-on, and you will see this button and you can emulate problem with vision for separated stories, for separated components. And you should understand it's not necessary background color and paragraph text color. It could be some button background color and text color inside button. Also, you should know if you have more than one theme, you should test every theme separately. If you have dark, light theme, some specific theme, all theme should be tested separately. And you should know Lighthous and other test libraries not perfect and cannot test some active state. For example, active clicked links or active buttons when you set focus to button or some input, and etc. and etc. Yeah, I have a problem with contrasts when I use some focused text elements. In dark theme for AAA it's not enough 1% for perfect contrast. But as you can see, Lighthous say accessibility 100%. Also we should talk about clickable area. Lighthous can check small clickable area, for example some small text, small link, and etc. without padding, and also can detect areas that overlap with other elements, but only in initial state. If some user action or some async methods overlap some active element, Lighthous and other accessibility test packages cannot detect this, but in this case perfect solution is using Storybook. Also in the cases with color contrasts in different component state. Let me explain please. When we write Storybook stories, we describe all component state. It could be pending, it could be focused, it could be active, inactive, disabled, and etc. and etc. And when we're using Storybook accessibility add-on, we can see all components accessibility problem in all states. Also we can use automatically test for accessibility using X, it's a testing engine for accessibility testing. I'm going to make separated video about testing, but for today you should know that first of all you should run accessibility testing for all your themes, and most important, if you write only unit test without CSS loading, without browsers, all test engine will skip many accessibility problem. But let's talk about this in one of the next video. So everything I said before except the keyboard issue is pretty easy to implement, and it will give you 100% in Lighthous. But Lighthous and Axe and other test engines declare that they can test only 67% of accessibility, and the last 33% is about keyboard navigation. And my personal opinion from my own experience, keyboard navigation a lot more than 33% of your work. In terms of complexity and volume of work, I rate everything that comes before at 20% and 80% for keyboard navigation. Let me explain. User should have access to all your active elements using keyboard tab and shift tab for go back, and of course space or enter for activate some element. Also user should see what element are active now, focused now. Here you can play with some text color, text highlight, like I do. But the best solution was a CSS outline property. CSS outline can add some border to your HTML element, but do not resize it. Top layout border, and this border will not break your design, your layout. And as web developer, you should know that ability to make your element focused is given by attribute tab index. All elements with tab index greater than -1 can be selected, can be focused. But I can send more, you can use only 0. First of all, because greater than 0 is very too hard to manage in a big complex project. And the second reason, because all test engines like Lighthous will say you should not use greater than 0 value, because it is hard to understand navigation from left to right, from top to bottom. But there are many cases when much more useful to use navigation to write content first before left sidebar. For example, like in my cases. And here we should talk about usability as part of accessibility for people who use keyboard navigation. And in my case, I use reorder, CSS order property in a grid system. Reordering is a bad practice in accessibility recommendation, but now we talk about usability versus accessibility for people who use keyboard. And in my case, I believe that usability more important than abstract best practice. And if you talk about usability, we have a lot of cases where I should think about usability for people who use keyboard. For example, you can see filter panel here, and all separated filter block can be collapsed. This is done so the user can get the block they need faster. And for this reason, I create a collapse all button. And there are actually a lot of search challenges for the developer. I will try to talk about some approaches, but I'm sure there are more. Let's start with skip to my content functionality. So first taggable element, first active element on your page should be anchor link to main content. Usually this link has absolute position and hidden with left or right position using overflow hidden or clip. But when this element was focused, element should be visible, and when we click on it or press enter, we go to main content block by anchor link. And yeah, anchor link automatically scroll to your block, and next tab press will focus to first main content block. So we don't have to think about this. In this case, user should not tab on your all navigation, links, and etc. To click for go to main content and work with main page. At go next, also we have some pop-ups, sidebars, modal windows, and etc. We have good practice, usability practice, close it on escape press. But for accessibility, for pop-ups, we have practice that called focus trap. When we open some pop-up, first of all, we should set focus to first active element inside pop-up, and all our tab press or shift tab should navigate us only inside modal window or some sidebar. Yeah, we prohibit getting focus outside the pop-up. And one more thing, when we close this pop-up, no matter how, escape press, press some button and etc., focus should go back to element what opens this pop-up. And of course, we should think about usability elements like scroll top button. Also, it is necessary to think about elements like spinners, loaders panel, and some error alerts. Here I strongly recommend you to create one component what will show a state of loading some async data. So loader when we load something, and error when something goes wrong. Yeah, I believe on backend guys, but backend can drop some microservice. or make some mistakes in some separated API methods, and it is better to display error in some specific block than make a global error for full page. And yes, loaders should have ability to have focus, because we have people who use keyboard and have trouble with their vision. And here we have a lot of work too. For example, we all use infinity scrolls, but what happens when we just press tab or press tab too quickly? We should think what we should do for a keyboard user, not lose focus when we wait some infinity loading. In my case, I just make focus trap on loader and return focus ability when load finished, or make some error. In conclusion, keyboard navigation is a challenge for the developer. You will have to rethink all the elements that have become familiar to you. And most difficult about this, you should write tests for accessibility and keyboard navigation. It is very important to write tests, because in regular life, ordinary, you don't use keyboard navigation and you won't be able to see some mistakes, some errors. This error will only be seen by the person for who it is critical, and you will lose a loyal user even if you actually spend time for accessibility development. So yes, tests are required. Tests are mandatory, and this functionality is very complex, and you should be ready for this when you start thinking about accessibility and keyboard navigation. So I hope I helped you at least a little. If you wanna thank me, please support Ukraine in all the way available to you. Please believe me, Russia is a terrorist state. The Russians try to kill me and everyone who I love and know. So please support Ukraine by money, by pressure on your politicians, or by a simple like on some Ukrainian support video. So think about accessibility in web development and in real life, and support Ukraine. Thank you.